It's a poem by Wendell Berry. It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And that when we no longer know which way to go, we have come to our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings. The impeded stream is the one that sings. There's so much going on around us that we have all of our ups and downs in, and I always get inspired when I pick up the first Buddhist Women, Poems and Stories of Awakening by Susan Murcott. I don't know if this is forward or backwards, but I think it's okay. You've heard me read different ones at different times, and because it's fall and we had the equinox and we were talking about trees the last time, and there's a chapter in here. I love the way she organizes this book because it's divided. It makes it hard to cross-reference because in all the other references, they're numbered or they're just not grouped the way she grouped them. She grouped these basically to appeal to women, I would say, because the chapters are divided up into the first, well, it's the first woman who founded the nuns, her first group of 500 women, Mahapachapati, and then there's Pachachara, and then it's divided into wanderers and disciples, wise women and teachers, mothers, wives, old women, prostitutes, courtesans, and beautiful women, friends and sisters, Buddhist nuns and nature, and then there are some dialogue poems. And so in this section on Buddhist nuns and nature, there's some comments about trees. And that, you know, in ancient folk religion, oftentimes a human woman is frequently linked with a tree. And there's an association, and sometimes it results in the trees blossoming and bearing fruit. And if I can find this segment in here, I just thought I'd say a little bit about trees before about sort of the symbolism of trees at the time of the Buddha, and whether there was, you know, any really related to Buddhism, because in other previous religions, the Jains and the Brahmins, there was a lot of various references around trees, not so much in Buddhism, except that, you know, like Vimala and different people that are often acknowledged in these Therigatha. This is from Therigatha, which is actually the early Buddhist nuns' recordings. And since the way things were remembered were in groups so that it could be sort of sing-songish, even though it might have been written in prose in the first place. But lots of times people go to the foot of a tree, or in this case with nuns and trees, because the poems are celebrated as nature. But with few exceptions, the nuns didn't live as hermits away from civilization. They did for a little while, but it became a little dangerous for them. So they were in close association with each other near villages. And so their poems are a little bit different from their male counterparts, the monks of the Therigatha, whose poems frequently celebrate some element or creature of the natural world, like wind and rain and mountain and bamboo thickets. But the nun stories, where nature is evoked and where the nun is associated with a tree or the moon is often in there too. There's sometimes a kind of mythic overtone. And it's not just a story or a poem about a certain tree or about the moon. There's sometimes like supernatural element comes into play. And so in some of these examples, the tree or the forest may have significance and may be magical or deified, but in this chapter in her book, one of the poems by Soma, it's not unlike previous examples that are in the book, but the tree is just an excellent place under which she wanted to sit and meditate. But you might, sometimes you can hear stories of the deva spirits that lived in the trees. That was the beginning of the metta practice, because the monks had moved into an area that tree spirits lived in, and they didn't like the monks taking over their forest, and so they did scary things that made the monks run back to the Buddha and ask them to move. And he said, no, we're not going to move, but I will teach you these practices to include all the fearful things in your kindness practice. So in that case, you hear about devas and trees and things, but there are various places that forests, the Buddha and the monks and the nuns always roamed, and the monks could spread out and sit under trees more often than the nuns did because they congregated closer to towns. But let me see if I can find something in here that I wanted to bring together, because there's in the Brahmic culture at the time, there are other associations with trees and plants and a particular deity. In fact, the fig tree is often associated with Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, and the tree was worshipped by barren women in the hopes of conceiving a child. And the same tree is also associated with Lakshmi's husband, Vishnu. There's Vata, the banyan tree, because of its aerial roots and long life, and it's a symbol of longevity. And in ancient folklore religion, the woman often is associated with trees blossoming, or sometimes you would see in Buddhism, there's sort of a fertility motif that appears sometimes in some of the iconography, and you might see carvings of these big-breasted, sensuous women in association with a tree that's carved at the gates or leads into a temple precinct or something like that. So Soma, in this case, we're going to talk about Soma. Soma was the daughter of the minister of King Bimbisara, and she would have been a woman of some status, as her father held a very powerful position, something like a prime minister, but with kind of religious responsibilities as well. And Soma first heard the Buddha preach on a visit that he made to Rajagaha early in his teaching career. And her path followed the typical pattern of progressive involvement. After hearing the Buddha's discourse, she became a lay disciple, and subsequently she ordained as a nun. And the final development along this trajectory was of her becoming an arahant. She became an awakened one, a holy one. And Soma uttered her poem when one day she went out to sit beneath the tree to meditate. And in India, the earliest form of a temple or a place of worship was a tree. And so originally there weren't temples built. to gods. There were just huge shady trees that were supposed to be the abode of sometimes some unseen powers. And as Soma was sitting under this tree, Mara, who is also referred to a lot when you hear stories of the Buddha's awakening, when Mara appears to tempt him through all kinds of sensuous pleasures and a variety of ways of tempting him. And that's the, kind of mythical way of describing the mind, when the mind is sort of torturing us around things. And so she's sitting under this tree, and Mara appeared and spoke the poem's first stanza. And then Soma contradicted him with a response of great force, because for her it was self-evident that sexism arises from ignorance, and when the great dark is torn apart, distinctions made on the basis of gender are seen as they really are. And what in Pali is called samusilachara is the conventional truth. So Mara is here and tempting her. Mara says, "The place that sages gain is hard to reach. A mere woman can't get there." And Soma says, "What harm is it to be a woman when the mind is concentrated and the insight is clear?" If I asked myself, am I a woman or a man in this, then I would be speaking Mara's language. Everywhere the love of pleasure is destroyed, the great dark is torn apart, and death, you too are destroyed. I have another version written by Tanasiru Bhikkhu. Then in the morning, the bhikkhuni Soma, dressed, and taking bowl and robe, entered Savatthi for alms. When she had walked for alms in Savatthi and had returned from her alms round, after her meal, she went to the blind men's grove for the day's abiding. Having plunged into the blind man's grove, she sat down at the foot of a tree for a day's abiding. Then Mara, the evil one, desiring to arouse fear, trepidation, and terror in the bhikkhuni Soma, desiring to make her fall away from concentration, approached her and addressed her in verse. That state so hard to achieve, which is to be attained by the seers, can't be attained by a woman. Then it occurred to the bhikkhuni Soma, now who is this that recited the verse? A human being or a non-human being? Then it occurred to her, this is Mara, the evil one, who has recited the verse desiring to arise fear, trepidation, and terror in me, desiring to make me fall away from concentration. Then the bhikkhuni Soma, having understood, this is Mara, the evil one, replied to him in verses. What does womanhood matter at all? When the mind is concentrated well, when knowledge flows on steadily, as one sees correctly into the Dhamma. One to whom it might occur, I'm a woman, or I'm a man, or I'm anything at all, is fit for Mara to address. Then Mara, the evil one, realizing, the bhikkhuni Soma knows me, sad and disappointed, he disappeared right there. That's a pretty good one. She woke up. She woke up. There's one more, if I can find it here. Page 147.
Randall?
Yes.
Just a quick question. Do you wake up just for a moment?
Not in this case. She became realized, a realized being. She
Okay.
became an arahant.
An arahat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's see, Sukha. Sukha was from a wealthy family in Rajaga. Her name means bright or lustrous, and the poem makes a play on this meaning. When Sukha was a young girl, she heard the Buddha preach and joined the Sangha as a lay disciple. Later, she was ordained by Dhammadina, the nun famous for her eloquence. Sukha practiced with great sincerity and attained nirvana in a short time. As she matured, her skills as a speaker grew until she was considered the equal of her teacher. Dhammadina eventually, she assumed the leadership of the large following of nuns. One day, when she returned home from with her companions from alms round in Rajagaha, Sukha began to preach. She spoke so beautifully that her listeners were enchanted, and even a tree at the edge of the gathering was inspired to go striding through the streets and alleys of the town, praising her excellence and exclaiming this poem. The Pali word for tree spirit in Dhammapala's commentary on Sukha's poem is devata, which literally means deity. It is feminine, as are all the abstract nouns ending in ta. Whatever their gender, various tree spirits seem to have admired Sukha. In the Samyutta Nikaya, another tree spirit pays homage to her in this way. A wise lay follower gained a lot of merit. He gave a robe to Sukha, who is free from all bonds. So here is her writing. What has happened to these people in Rajaga? They're all like drunks. They don't listen to Sukhala's preaching or the Buddha's teaching. But the wise drink her words as travelers drink rain, and never tired of their sweetness. Sukha, you are light because of your bright mind, concentrated, free of desire. You have conquered Mara and his forces. Bear this body. It is your last. There are more involved in nature. We have some moon stories also. But I think I'll just let those rest for now and read this one more poem if I can find it about letting go. She Let Go. This is by Sapphire Rose. She let go. She let go without a thought or a word. She let go. She let go of the fear. She let go of the judgments. She let go of the confidence of opinions swarming around her head. Confluence of opinions swarming around her head. She let go of the committee of indecision within her. She let go for all the right reasons, wholly and completely, without hesitation or worry. She just let go. She didn't ask anyone for advice. She didn't read a book on how to let go. She didn't search the scriptures. She just let go. She let go of all the memories that held her back. She let go of all the anxiety that kept her from moving forward. She let go of the planning and all of the calculations about how to do it just right. She didn't promise to let go. She didn't journal about it. She didn't write the projected date in her day timer. She made no public announcement and put no ad in the paper. She didn't check the weather report or read her daily horoscope. She just let go. She didn't analyze whether she should let go. She didn't call her friends to discuss the matter. She didn't do a 5-step spiritual mind treatment. She didn't call the prayer line. She didn't utter one word. She just let go. No one was around when it happened. There was no applause or congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. No one noticed a thing. Like a leaf falling from a tree, she just let go. There was no effort. There was no struggle. It wasn't good and it wasn't bad. It was what it was, and it was just that. In the space of letting go, she let it all be. A small smile came over her face. A light breeze blew through her. And the sun and the moon shone forevermore. Let's sit for a few moments and let some of these words of letting go and being female embodied in this lifetime, nuns and nature and waking up, people and nature letting go. May we continue letting go moment to moment. Letting go this moment. And letting go this moment. And this moment and this moment. And may we wake up to Mara and the confusion that goes through our minds sometimes, turning our mind toward the skillful, remembering our acts of goodness. Remembering the changing nature of things, suffering and the causes of suffering, the attachment and clinging that can arise, and the path of letting go. Anicca vata sankhara upadavaya domino upakitawa maruchanti te samvapasamo sukho. All conditioned things arise and pass away, are subject to impermanence. Seeing this clearly with mindfulness brings the greatest happiness, which is peace. No one noticed a thing. Like a leaf falling from a tree, she just let go. There was no effort. There was no struggle. It wasn't good and it wasn't bad. It was what it was, and it is just that. In the space of letting go, she let it all be. A small smile came over her face. A light breeze blew through her, and the sun and moon shone forevermore. May that small smile come over our faces. Thank you for your practice. May the merits of our practice benefit all sentient beings. May you hold yourself in kindness and be kind to others.